Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice of Esther Lynn welcomes you to a brand new edition of Between the Links. Happy Thursday to us all. We are back live on the MMA Fighting YouTube channel. So thank you all for joining us live. And if you're listening after the fact, kind of shame on you, but we appreciate you listening nonetheless. As Esther said, I am Mike Heck. Today, it's our monthly Q&A edition of BTL, where we're just going to answer your questions all show long. And joining me to do this is Mr. No Gray Area, Mr. No Hot Take, the man who produced arguably the greatest episode of Damn They Were Good in the history of the MMA Fighting Podcasting Network. Isn't that right, Jed Mishu?
Look, I don't know if it's the greatest. I think it is, but it's certainly the longest. So that dropped this morning. If you are listening to this on the wonderful MMA Fighting Radio Network, you already know. But, just click the download button. You can't do it on data. You're going to have to wait till you have Wi-Fi. 2 and almost 3 hours worth of Khabib Nurmagomedov content in your ear hole. We had a lot of fun. It's a great episode. You should check it out.
You should check it out. It's a good time. And also here with us on the ones and twos, producer extraordinaire in San Diego, getting ready for Bellator 300. There he is. Are you behind a fence?
Oh, no, I'm just.
Are you in a cage?
I'm in a wonder.
It looks like you're in a cage.
Why is? All right, I'll fix that. Yeah.
I want to play tic-tac-toe so bad right now.
You start in the middle, right? You always start in the
Hollywood
middle,
Squares,
right?
baby. Casey is the middle in our Hollywood Square.
You're our Joan Rivers. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what he is.
Yes. We need a Jim J. Bullock and all the other outstanding personalities.
Can we do MMA Hollywood Squares? Is that a thing we can do? Should we save this $1 million idea for off air?
Yes. We have lots of ideas going on right now. That's for sure. We have the Combine. We got this. There's so many things we can do. So.
Oh, the Combine. God,
someday we'll make it happen. So, yes, this is your show, everybody. We are just going to banter about based on the topics you bring up to us. So get the questions in the chat. Casey will bring them up and we will discuss. So do we have anything? Joseph Boza, will Paddy be fast-tracked to a title eliminator at lightweight if he beats Tony Ferguson? So I think we've kind of reacted to the fight. We've somewhat touched on the stakes involved here. Like Dana White said, if Tony loses, probably donezo with the UFC, although Tony said on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, he's nowhere near done fighting. He's got a long way to go. We've also talked about, and I know fighters have talked about this, I've talked about this a lot on Heck of a Morning, what happens to Paddy Pimblett here? Because a loss is really, really bad. A win, it kind of depends on how he treats this fight, in my opinion. But I don't know if he gets really the credit he deserves beating a guy who has lost 6 fights in a row in pretty dominant fashion. So let's say Paddy goes out, Jed Mishu, and he treats this very respectful. He's very respectful to Jared Gordon in the build to the fight, said nice things about him. Let's say he treats Tony with the same kind of gloves, is very respectful, very nice, puts over Tony in his resume, goes out, has a fun fight with Tony and wins it. What does this do for him? And do you think the UFC could fast track him in this loaded 155-pound division if he beats Tony?
It's a great question. Great question, Joe. I think they may try. I don't know that they're going to be able to. Some of this will probably, be how the performance looks. Like, let's be honest. He goes out there and he runs over Tony Ferguson because Tony is washed. But, still, there's probably still some cachet to just dominating Tony Ferguson. And if he can go out there and, pull a Benny Dariush, something like that, then maybe that gets enough gumption in him to be like, all right, let's take a run at the top 15. Let's see what the Matt Frivolas of the world are doing. So they probably try, but I think that they would try regardless of who he beats. This is just the name. Like we've run out of real estate for Paddy Pimblett to not fight a real person now. Like Jared Gordon was the last dude. Shouldn't have even beaten Jared Gordon. You can't keep having him fight absolute nobodies without at least taking a shot at something. And so Tony Ferguson is just kind of the easiest springboard to get him into an opportunity where maybe instead of saying, hey, Paddy beats this guy, now he's going to fight a top 15 guy, maybe Tony Ferguson has at least enough name value and Paddy Pimblett himself is a big enough star that can springboard him into attracting the eyes of a top 10 guy, a Dan Hooker, somebody like that who is a top 10 opponent who isn't probably really close to a title shot and might be looking for a big name, big opportunity. Hell, wouldn't make a ton of sense, but like you could sell me on Dustin Poirier fighting Paddy Pimblett because he's interested in big fights, etc. Like he's not trying to fight real up and comers. So Paddy goes here, beats Tony Ferguson. Maybe Poirier can even sell himself on the idea of, hey, this dude at least is very popular. That fight is more meaningful to me than fighting, Arman Sarukian or whatever in that regard. So I think if he wins and if he wins cleanly, yeah, they're probably going to try and bump him up to shortcut as much of the lightweight, Shark Tank as he can.
So I have two other questions for you in regards to this fight. One, we saw Tony Ferguson on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Great show. It was an interview that's gotten a lot of attention because people were wondering what kind of attitude Tony was going to have. Was he going to be just kind of the nutty, just say crazy things Tony Ferguson, or is he going to be more of a reflective, what the hell have I been doing with myself, Tony Ferguson? And I feel like we got more of the latter than the former, although there were some of the former sprinkled in, but it was just a little more laid back. What were your biggest takeaways from Tony on the MMA Hour?
I hated it. I don't know I honestly have not been super plugged into the rest of the MMA sphere as much. Not to derail this or make this like this kind of thing, because this will upset some people. Twitter just is really not fun anymore. It's just been I'm on MMA Twitter a whole lot less because the engagement is just so different now. And it's, I'm not making a moral judgment on that. If that's your thing or whatever, it's just not for me anymore, which is a shame, but it does mean that I'm like way less plugged into some of the stuff that's happened this week, Tony among it. So I don't know how everyone else, vibed that, but I didn't like it. I like that he appears to be in a good place mentally. I'm really happy for him that I don't think he's reckoning with the truth of anything at all. And that is the part that is far more concerning to me. Some of the stuff he said, like, you want to believe it and you want to feel good. Yeah, I feel great, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was not with the right people and now I am. Like, all of that is, you hope that it's true because you hope for the best for these guys. But it was one of the clearest examples to me of the difference between fighters and quote unquote regular people, like, and the mental gymnastics you have to be able to do to put yourself into the position that they're in, to be convinced that you can win a fist fight against anybody and that you are the best in the world. And this is the sort of dark side of it. I know I've lost 6 in a row, but that's not really who I am. I have plenty of tread left on the tires. It's just not real. Like I would have hoped that 6 in a row would be the time. I don't know how many in a row it takes for somebody to reckon with their own mortality in this way, but it really doesn't appear to me that Tony is. He keeps grasping at straws of it. I was with the wrong people, I was with the wrong camp. And I'm not saying that had no part, but I think the obvious and clear answer is something very different that he's not prepared to have that conversation with himself about. So hope for the best, but I did not leave that interview feeling great about his prospects to succeed, and felt really bad that he seems very intent on trying to continue.
My other question, let's just say you were hired by Paddy Pimblett and his team to manage the image of Paddy Pimblett. Like, this is how you should handle yourself heading into this fight. Are you telling Paddy Pimblett, hey, treat this man with respect. He's a former interim lightweight champion. He's been in some big fights, one of the longest winning streaks in the history of the division, one of the top 10 lightweights of all time? Or do you have Paddy go in there and just go after Tony? Because look, after the Jared Gordon fight, and I know absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? Like we can't miss you if you don't leave. And I kind of feel like the break is going to put Paddy on this fork in the road where he can either put Tony over and be really cool and not celebrate a finish or anything like that, just kind of take it in stride, or he could just go full-fledged heel here and just let everybody outside of the UK just hate the man. And hatred creates dollars too. So if you are managing Paddy and Paddy's like, hey, Jed, how should I handle myself heading into this fight? What would you tell him? Would you tell him to go full heel or try to put Tony over as best you can?
I think there are two options. That's a really, really good question, Mike. One that I would have honestly liked you have to asked me before this, so I could have really weighed it out in my head, not just fire from the hip, because I think there probably is a right answer. So I think there are two ways, and you kind of outlined there, but I'll dig into it a little more specifically. I don't think you put Tony over if you're going to go that route. I think that that's like a very viable route, and I suspect that that's the route we'll see, where you don't, try and blow smoke or sell wolf tickets. It's not a Tony's still dangerous. It's, this guy's a legend of the game. It's an honor to fight him. And, he's still showing something. He's not at his best, but it doesn't matter because I know come Saturday night, he is going to be the best that he possibly can be. And that's, for 10 years plus, the best Tony Ferguson was an absolute handful. And you can go that route and, not like fully kayfabe it that he's like seriously danger, but you can give him enough props so that when you beat him, we all know the transaction that has occurred, and you don't have to lie to anybody. And I suspect that that's what Paddy's going to do. As I'm talking through it, I think if I was Paddy's management, I would just tell him to go full heel, because you're not going to make any fans off this one. Like realistically, you're not going to accomplish much off this one other than some ephemeral idea of having the name Tony Ferguson on your resume. Though what that means off a 6-fight losing streak is who knows. I think maybe it's not the most honest, but I think the most straightforward and sound way to approach this would just straight up being like, I'm going to kill this old dude. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on. This is promotional malpractice. I cannot believe you guys see me. I'm on a 6-fight winning streak. I'm young. I'm vibrant. I'm not fat. I put down the pizza so I could come and smash this joker. Like, he's lost 6 in a row. He's talking about Ninja Turtles and being weird and wearing sunglasses inside. I'm going to absolutely annihilate him. And I think what the UFC is trying to do here is they're trying to make me beat this man into retirement, and I will absolutely relish the opportunity to do my job in this regard. I think that's probably a better way to play it. You're going to make a lot of people really upset. Some people will like it because that's, how this sort of game works. And at the end, you're going to, if you're going for the most cachet, I think that's the way to play it, with one major caveat being, buddy, if you go plan B, you better deliver. If you Jared Gordon your ass in here after talking all that greasiness and then can't beat washed Ferguson, you're going to catch it in the teeth forever. So I think I'd go plan B, but man, you got to make sure you fulfill your obligations on plan B as well.
But if he goes plan A as well and loses to Tony, he's going to catch it in the teeth too. So I don't think
he's going to catch it in the teeth if he loses. But at least if it's plan A, it's less. I told you he's still good, and you can. That's more forgettable. It will be the first. Paddy will get the 13 seconds treatment for the rest of his career if he comes and is like, this is about to be an execution, and then gets got. Like, it's just it.
I kind of feel like the heel way is the way to go. He could be like
definitely the good guy.
He could be like the Bret the Hitman Hart of the late 90s, where Bret was a major heel in America, but in Canada, he was a freaking hero. Like, he got cheered. He was the big baby face, but in America, he was booed out of the building. And Paddy could be like booed out of the building in America, but he goes to the UK, he's celebrated like a hero. Like, you could do the same thing. You could still have that. You could still be loved, but you could be hated too, and both make a lot of money. And you can make a pretty compelling argument that being hated is more profitable than being loved in some respects. So we'll see what happens. I've grown more okay with this one. Don't love it, but I'm not as staunchly against it as I once was. I'll say that.
I still hate it. I don't. The silver lining is I don't know what I would like for Tony Ferguson. If he is what I would like is for the UFC to say we're not going to book you, because that's what I would choose to. Like, if you would like to be released from your contract, I can't stop you, but I'm out. So if they're, that's never the UFC's prerogative anymore. I honestly don't know who did you guys matchmake for him on Otno after his last loss? Did anyone wild card him?
Joe Lozon was the fight that's the one I kept going back to.
I could live with that. I could live with that, and I could live with, even though he probably loses at this point in time, I could live with that, or Jim Miller at UFC 300. That would be about the only thing I would accept. So anything else, I'm just gonna hate.
Don't you think Jim Miller's better than Paddy Pimblett?
Maybe he might be better. He's much older is the problem. Like, I'm once you get to that realm, even if you are better, and maybe Jim Miller beats Paddy Pimblett, it's just like, let old dudes fight old dudes, because that at least sits better on the palate.
Yeah, Miller's been clubbing dudes too. Like, he's been like knocking people. He's been beating people up with his mitts, as opposed to just subbing everybody lately. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm just never going to be that upset with an old washed guy fighting a 40-year-old dude. Like, that's at least a pal. Even if Jim Miller's been fine, like, he's also been fine against a bunch of dudes who don't have wiki pages or whatever. So, like, some of that's there. That just makes more sense from a, Legends tour or whatever than this Paddy Pimblett does. I still hate this fight.
Dude, I'm still kind of confused why people hate this fight, because is Paddy Pimblett good? Is he top 15?
It's not top 15, but it does not. Top 15 is not the barrier to entry for Tony Ferguson at this point in time. He's probably top 30.
You just don't want Tony Ferguson to fight anybody, right?
Anybody real? No. I don't want him to fight a real human unless it's a legend of the game, and then I will accept it.
Yeah, because I think Jim Miller would put a much bigger hurting on Tony than Paddy would.
Maybe, but
brain damage.
Maybe, yeah, but I'm just like way more cooler with those two dudes at that stage of their careers facing off with each other. Like, otherwise, yeah, Paddy, like, have Tony Ferguson fight me or whatever. Like, I don't know. I actually do honestly think the UFC should, as a rule, a hard and fast rule, never book someone on a 6-fight losing streak. That's just like anathema to everything for them. You should be like, hey man, you're a legend. We'd like you to retire. If you're not going to, we'll be done with your services.
Yeah, this kind of fight's just such a rarity, because there's a guy on a big winning streak against a guy on a big losing streak, like the same number.
I honestly don't know that this has happened since like Pride.
Yeah. So it's weird to look at like the wikis and the Tapology pages like right next to each other. Whole bunch of green against a whole bunch of red.
I could do Clay Guida. Yeah. I could do Clay Guida for Tony Ferguson.
Another old guy.
Yeah. I'm looking through Tapology rankings. I'm currently in the 70s trying to find some dude that would be a responsible match.
But
there ain't a lot of them, guys.
Because there is so much freaking conversation on this fight.
That's fine.
I can't.
It's promotionally fine fight to make.
Promotionally seems like a perfect fight, but yeah, I'm just kind of always shocked how much people care about this fight. But yeah, here we are.
I wouldn't say it's perfect, just because most of the conversation's negative, and while no publicity is bad publicity, at some point, like, I just don't think they're getting as much juice as they could for like all of the negativity that comes their way. But it's fine matchup in that regard. And if the idea is maybe if Tony just gets killed by this dude that most people think isn't good, maybe he'll quit, then I'm fully on board. But I'm pretty sure that that's not the idea behind this matchup.
Yeah, I think it's kind of twofold. One is if you're trying to use Tony to get Paddy over, I don't know if this is going to do it unless Paddy does go full heel and just puts this guy away and get him out of the UFC. Like he's can live off the fact that I'm the guy who retired Tony Ferguson. You could do like Logan Paul. I'm the guy who beat Floyd Mayweather. Like you could do that. Like you could be that guy. What?
I've got it. I've got the matchup for Tony Ferguson.
What is it?
It's Chase Hooper, because he could beat Chase Hooper. He could beat Chase Hooper. That's the matchup that I would have accepted as well.
Huh. Interesting.
Hooper's a 45er, right?
No, he's 55 now.
Yeah, he bumped.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
I mean, it's not a good fight, but he could be. I'm strictly at this point trying to find a fight Tony Ferguson can win in the confines of the UFC.
That's the fight Joe Lozon wanted at UFC 292. He's like, book me against Chase Hooper in Boston.
Yeah, because he could win it in Boston. That'd be a
they're like, no,
heck of a swan song for him. Is Anthony Pettis still under contract with PFL? Can we bring him back?
Why would he want to come back? He just made like a floppity jillion dollars to box Roy Jones Jr. Why would he ever want to come back to the UFC?
Look, that's a great point.
He wants to fight Cedric Doumbe.
I mean, that seems like a bad choice, but okay, you know, however you want to live your life, I guess. I am in the 160s, and I've come up with 2 names that are like reasonable matchups for Tony. Lightweight is a tough weight class to get old in.
Let's go to Michael. Good name. Given the lack of tape evidence in MMA based on vibes, how good is Cedric Doumbe, Jed Mishu? Now, most people in America did not get to watch. Actually, nobody in America, unless you were a media member, got to watch this fight live, or if you had a good VPN. But this to me, like, I know they build it. Listen, I crap on the PFL more than probably anybody because they make so many mistakes. They could be really good, but they just aren't good. But the matchmaking here was absolutely brilliant because this was a squash match to me on paper. By watching tape, everything I saw, this was a squash match. This was the Cedric Doumbe squash match special, even though they were both 4-0 as pro MMA fighters. So this is picture perfect. Doumbe delivered in a big way. This was absolutely perfect. Too bad nobody really got to see it, but the social media clip went viral, and that's great. How do you view him? I mean, like, how high are you on him at this point? Like, is this the dude? What do you think? So
we're clear. The social clip going out is the fight. The clip is the full fight. Yeah, the fight was 9 seconds, so it's fine. Yes, it was very dumb that the PFL would ever put on. And I just truly need someone to explain to me why they couldn't broadcast it somewhere. Like, I genuinely don't understand how that can't be on YouTube. Like, there's no reasonable explanation that I will accept for why, like, dude, you can watch like Aries shit on YouTube. You can watch like Bumble Frick organization in the Caucasus Mountains on YouTube. I can't watch PFL and like one of your main attractions. The hell is that? But yeah, he's the truth. This is plain and simple. He wakes up every day and it's excellence. Dude, he's dope. Like, he's dope. I'm trying really hard to not get this censored on the Pod Network. I've had to censor myself like 5 times. So yeah, I don't know if you ever watched him kickbox. Is pretty sick. And if you've watched him murder admittedly bad people in MMA, it's still pretty sick. And hey, I don't know if you guys know this, but Mike, I feel like there have been some relatively successful glory kickboxing champions in MMA of late. Is that right? Has there been a couple of very successful glory champions making the move to MMA?
I think.
Am I crazy?
I think you might be onto something here.
Like, one guy's middleweight champion, one guy was middleweight champion, is about to fight for the light heavyweight title. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. Look, it's not being Combat Sambo world champion, but being glory kickboxing champion appears to be an excellent base for MMA. So yeah, the vibes are immaculate. The man's a star. You hear him talk. You hear him coming with the absolute thunder in his post-fight presser, firing shots and some like pretty heavy accusations. This man is the truth. New York Rick has been a big proponent of him since day one. I've been right there with them, and I think everybody who knows what's up is right there on Doumbe. This guy, I mean, hell, he's 30, 32, somewhere in that like early 30s range, and at a really good weight class. So might have a hard time, but weight class is in a little transition. I mean, if the PFL is going to be probably pretty easy money for him to run through that run at this point. So he's going to be great. And in the not too distant future, he's going to be a top 10 guy for us. Wish the UFC hadn't fumbled the bag. I would have loved to see Doumbe and what he could do against some of the top welterweights in the sport, but c'est la vie.
Would you put him in the season, or would you just special attraction him, pay-per-view type fights?
It's a really good question. I think you just special attraction him because who really cares about PFL seasons? And I think that that's going to be progressively the case with PFL, which is going to entirely undermine their entire structure. But, whatever. The problem is, what are the special attractions for him? Like PFL's welterweight division is poop.
Just book him in the same kind of fight here. Find him a guy, because the guy he fought, I don't remember his name. I just remember watching tape. He's like a 3-3 Ami, and then he just got a bunch of cream puff fights as a pro. And this is like,
you just give him smashes.
Yeah,
but at some point, you want to do something bigger with him, and I just don't know what that is. Because, I mean, if the PFL does buy Bellator, then that's way more fun. Eventually, a Cedric Doumbe, versus our boy. It's pretty good. I mean, actually, their welterweight division's getting a little bit old, but it's still much better than Sadabusi or whatever. So yeah, if they do end up buying Bellator, which fingers crossed, knock on wood, hope that goes through, be better. An eventual Doumbe versus Amasov, Doumbe versus MVP. If MVP resigns, I don't know if he's, what's going on there. Doumbe versus Koreshkov, like these are cool things. So hopefully they pick up Bellator for no other reason than they need people for Doumbe to fight after one more year of him smashing cans and then obliterating Sadabusi.
I think that's what you do, is you give Doumbe a couple of cream puffs, and then you build end of 2024. MVP's a free agent. I don't know what the whole, I'm sure there's matching rights and all that stuff, but even if PFL just wants to go get him on his own, like on their own, just sign him. And if MVP wants to like fight on a card, great. But I think the whole thing is to build to that fight, because that'd be huge. That'd be just a fun special attraction kind of a fight. You don't book it now, but sometime the end of 2024, I think that'd be a nice little build.
Yeah. So I'm in.
Yeah. And show his fights in the US, for God's sake.
Such a low bar to show fights. And yet.
Oh, God. They're so good at making graphics. If Katsugano becomes the Bellator featherweight champion, will Bellator still be around for them to capitalize on said upset?
Joe, I gotta pick your brain here, man. What do you mean capitalize? What is there to if Chris Cyborg loses, they're just gonna fold the division because like they don't care about Katsugano being a champion. No one does. Why should they? They shouldn't. It's a fraudulent weight class anyway. The only thing that's giving it a patina of like realism is Chris Cyborg being there. And if she loses, I guess they won't fold if they buy PFL because like PFL ostensibly has it. But no, there's nothing to happen if Katsugano wins. Katsugano wins and Chris Cyborg fights. They'll do a rematch in PFL because Bellator won't exist by the time that would happen. And then the winner of that rematch gets to go get absolutely annihilated by Larissa Pacheco, who might be the best female fighter on the planet right now. So, yeah, no, there's nothing to capitalize on. It will be nothing but sadness. And admittedly, incredibly funny, which means it might happen because this year has been just a hysterically funny year. So, but no, there's nothing to capitalize on here.
It's so funny you say that because I went on the pod with Santiago and Marcel, the Bellator zone, where we talked about this. If there's one fight on this card that I had those like Stricklandy O'Malley vibes to, it's this one. For some weird reason, I can't put my finger on it, but it's this fight.
It would undeniably be the funniest outcome. Of all the funny outcomes that could happen, that would be the funniest thing for Kat Zingano to like semi-openly duck Chris Cyborg for well over a year, finally fight her, and then beat her, despite the fact that Kat Zingano is not even very good, would be objectively hilarious.
Yes. I'm not picking this to happen, but I don't know. I have those weird feelings about this one. But look, from some reports,
I'd pick Chris Cyborg to lose to a lot of people right now. I think she is primed to lose to people because she's been fighting for 20 years and hasn't really looked all that good in MMA lately. But not to Kat Zingano.
And look, even if the PFL does absorb Bellator, there's a lot of rumblings that they're just going to keep them separate for a little while. So I actually think that's the best. No, you don't like that?
You can't do that.
Why?
Look, I think that idea works if they don't purchase Bellator. And if, as we have previously discussed, they do a once a year Super Bowl where they just do a Super Bowl event and it's PFL versus Bellator and then the rest of them. If you are PFL and you acquire Bellator and you let Bellator run as its own thing, that's malpractice. Because I got to tell you, Mike, PFL's roster is just awful. It is just calamitously bad in several weight classes, and they desperately need the only reason to buy Bellator, realistically, because Bellator will co-promote. You could just co-promote with them if you wanted to. They've been open to that. The only reason to buy them is to buy their roster, which is the second best in MMA behind the UFC. They have a bunch of very quality fighters, and if you are the PFL trying to build your brand as the new TV rights deal comes up, your brand does not need to be, we have a bunch of C and D level fighters in this tournament structure that is really yet to take hold as something that is meaningful for this fan base. And we also own the rights to these good people over here who are doing an entirely separate thing. If you're going to buy it, you bring them all under one roof to make a big event, like to make a bigger, better product. So when your TV rights deal renews, you can come to ESPN with a tangible, real product and a depth of event structure there. So I think it would be really bad if they want to run them separately for the rest of the year. So Bellator can finish their Grand Prix, and then 2024 PFL, they finish their season and 2024 is all new. Okay. But if it's for the next year plus, we're going to run these as separate entities. Light that idea on fire and kick it out the door. We do not need that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting because even though Bellator has the second best roster in the sport right now, there aren't any stars there. There's guys who could be stars, but they don't have any stars. Like, and if you're going to run pay-per-views and all that, like, you just don't run enough events.
Pay-per-views. Don't run pay-per-views. Just don't do it. No one should run it. The UFC shouldn't run it, really, but they at least can get away with it. Just don't. Just build a promotion and recognize that, you know who doesn't run pay-per-views? The NFL. Do they hurt for money? No, because they have
been around way longer, though.
Yeah, okay. They still make $1 billion a day because of their TV deal rights with 8 different things. I'm not saying you're going to be the NFL or make that much money, but pay-per-view is just an insane thought for anything that is not the UFC. And even the UFC were probably past it. Didn't WWE stop doing pay-per-views? Don't they just have like your TV subscription or whatever to Paramount? Like it's just do a TV. You can't make a TV rights deal be good. You can't broadcast fucking live fights for one of your best fighters to America. Why the fuck are you trying to put on pay-per-views? Do your freaking job. Buy this company. Bring in their good fighters to your roster and make a real product that people can get behind. So in a year and a half, you can go to ESPN and get upfront cash in hand to continue building a viable alternative to the UFC. This shouldn't be that hard.
Amazing. Well said. I was hoping to get that out of you at some point, and we got it. So perfect.
I don't want to be mean to the PFL because I like in general what they're trying to do. I don't love that they got, $100 million of Saudi financing, but there are no heroes in this sport. But just like focus on the battles you can win, my man. Making an extra $400 from the 6 people who buy your championship pay-per-view is just not worth it. It's just not.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. This is going to be a tough one to buy. This one in November.
It's awful. It's like, well, one, like half of it's just the same as last year's, which is freaking terrible. It's just like, yeah, man, you don't do it. If you are insisting on doing pay-per-views, here's what you do. You do them come as they may. Like you play them by year. It's not we're going to make this. It's, hey, okay, well, now Jake Paul is actually going to fight in an MMA fight. You know what? We'll make a pay-per-view for that. But you don't just be like, we got to make a pay-per-view in November because that's when we do them. And we're going to try and chopped basket this up with the 4 items that are trash to make a edible meal. No, it's not it. You sell a product you have, not a product you wish you had. And that's what the PFL is going to be doing with the championship this year. It's like, okay, you're going to make an extra $40. You're going to lose out the opportunity to make a broader fan base by making this free for people to consume on a platform that most people in your demographic, males 18 to 34, own, ESPN Plus. Like, you should just stop this. Your focus should be on growth. You are not a money-making enterprise, and no one is believing that you are. Your focus is on growth, and growth is not behind a paywall. It never has been, never will be.
All right. Next question. I love this so much. PFL definitely needs to have a look in the mirror moment. If you could only pick 3 Bellator fighters to bring over, who are they?
I'm assuming that means to PFL, or do we think this means to bring over to the UFC?
I assume UFC because of the.
I think UFC. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go UFC because the PFL answer will be pretty. I don't know, 300 fighters to bring over, but yeah.
I mean, fair. That's a very fair point. I bet we would have the same. I mean, so the 2 of these are incredibly obvious, and then I think the third one is obvious enough. But I mean, Eblin and Nurmi, that's 1 and 2. There's no question in my mind. Because Johnny Eblin may well be the best middleweight alive. Nurmagomedov, there's an argument, I guess, not to bring him just because of Islam, and those 2 won't fight. But I think that Islam probably doesn't have many years left atop the sport, either from loss, or he probably will take a quicker exit, a la Habib. And given how young Usman is, let me check this. How old is he? He's like 25, something like that.
25, yeah.
Yeah. 20. He's 25 years old. He's 25 years old. That man is going to be the best lightweight in the world someday. I mean, at this point, like, he's younger than Arman Sarukian. Like, bring him over because we can get Sarukian versus Nurmagomedov. We can have a lot of fun fights with him. I already think he's probably one of the 10 best lightweights in the world, and he's 25. Like, he's 3 or 4 years at least away from his prime, his peak. So that would be number 2 for me behind Eblin. And my number 3, I think that there are 2 answers that, I guess there are more than 2 answers, actually, because there are a lot. Like, the top of the list for Bellator is great, but I had one really convincingly, and then I remembered Yaroslav Amosov, and now I'm like, shit.
There's this is tougher than you think.
It actually is.
Can I readjust the question? It's 3 non-champions. How about that? Because obviously all the champions can come over. Maybe for the exception.
No, I
Does
think
this
it's more
include-
fun because you have to choose the champions you want to come over though.
Oh, it's only 3.
that's-
I mean,
I know, but you gotta choose them because I would want like 6 of them to come over.
yeah. All right.
Non-champions, I don't think I even care who comes
Really?
over.
Aaron Pico?
Like I mean,
McKee-
it's
McKee-
Pico.
McKee-
It's
Pico.
Pico, AJ McKee,
Yeah,
and does
who
Pitbull
else?
have a belt right now?
Yeah, he's
He's the
featherweight
champion.
champion.
Is Pitbull the featherweight champion?
Yeah, he's the champion right now. And Apache. Could Apache's not technically the champion?
He's an interim champion.
If
though.
we're allowing
champion.
Patchy in this modified rule set, absolutely. But other than that, I don't know. Fabian Edwards is actually a good fighter. I'd be happy to see him over.
I'll read Adam Borch. I love Adam Borch.
Yeah,
I love him.
probably
I
not.
don't think he's a must-have though.
I think he's really good, but yeah.
Like if you could bring 15 guys, I'd probably bring Borch in.
I think yeah. Borch is out. Okay, whatever.
Kyoji,
Kyoji
doesn't have a belt. Give me Kyoji
Yeah. Kyoji.
for sure.
That's a good one.
If it's belt, I definitely want Nurm. I definitely want Eblin, and I think my third answer, I'm gonna go back to it. I'm gonna stick with it. It's the one I originally had. It's Patchy. Give me Patchy. I think that there's
Patchy.
I think there's a very real chance he's the best bantamweight in the world, and so I think all 3 of those people either could be or are the best fighter in their weight class. And so even though I'd love Vadim Nemkov, I'd love Yaroslav Amosov, I'm less interested in seeing those journeys than I am those 3 I picked.
It's tough. Eblin's number 1 for sure, because there's just so many interesting fights there. Nurmagomedov is definitely on the list, but kind of in the same frame of mind you have. I kind of want to get him when he's 27 or 28 than 25. Like, let him just carve out his niche and just crush everybody he fights there. And then when his contract expires and he's 28, about to hit his athletic peak, then bring him over. When Islam is out, then he could just hand it on over to Usman. McKee's a good one. I'd love to see Mix at 135. But I wonder if we would run into some issues, though, because I know Aljo trains with him. I know Merab trains with him. I don't know if we'd have any issues of like those guys fighting each other, because that's the last thing this friggin' division needs right now.
I'd be fine because neither Aljo nor Merab are fighting for the title anytime soon, so it's fine.
Well, Patchy probably isn't either. So, which as long as Sean O'Malley's the champion.
It's true.
Yeah, it's a good list. Pico,
Yeah.
I'd probably bring Pico over. Honestly, over Patchy.
Dude, there's just a whole ton of them that are dope.
There's a lot of
MVP
good ones.
theoretically still there, which goes to my previous point. If you're PFL and we just gave you a list of fighters who would be dope to have in the UFC, and then you look at yours and we're like, well, I'm about to give Sadam Usi another $1 million. We should definitely keep these brands separate. That's good for our long-term development. No, you idiots. Get real people into your organization now.
How can they possibly absorb all of these contracts, though? Like, how? How is this
what that
possible?
Saudi money's for, baby.
It's $100 million. It seems like a lot, but when you're bringing over 100 guys that you'd want on your roster, that's a lot of money, especially for some of these champions. It's a lot of friggin' money, man. It's a lot of money.
This is why you buy them, though. You're buying these contracts and not giving, each of them $750,000 a rip. You're just paying them whatever their existing contract structure is, which probably isn't a ton. I don't.
But
really
you
know
still
how
have
well
to pay
Bellator
them.
pays.
Yeah, you still have to pay
Yeah,
them.
you got to pay them that. But look, if at any point in time they run out of money, they can go back to Daddy Arabia and be like, "Hey, I need more." Money doesn't mean anything to you. It's fictional. You already gave me $100 million. What's an extra 100? It's the same. Let's go. One of these days, we're going to sell this product to ESPN for $500 million.
I'm super curious about how this is going to play out for the fighters. Like, will they have the option to stick around at the money they're making and stay? or you have the choice. You could just leave and test free agency. You may not take the risk. You may not get the money we're going to give you, but if you want to try it out, go ahead. Like, I wonder if this deal happens, if these champions and some of these big name fighters have to stay, or if they're given the option to explore free agency.
I assume that they have to stay to fulfill the contract obligations they have with Bellator, whatever those are. In the same way that, like, when the UFC bought Pride and several of those contracts, like Mark Hunt famously was given an option to leave and declined it. I think PFL could choose to say, if X fighter, if you would like to decline, or like, we would be happy for you to leave. And they may do some of that from a numbers standpoint. Influxing 150 people into your promotion is probably pretty tough, but I would strongly doubt, like, if so, like, if there is a buyout option or whatever for these fighters, then I will need someone to sit me down and explain it to me like I'm a Labrador retriever, what the PFL purchased. Because if they're not buying the contracts of the fighters in Bellator, I truly do not know what they are buying.
But you also have to think, too, that the UFC is not going to pay most of these guys what Bellator did. So these fighters would be taking a risk.
Maybe.
Like,
I actually don't know how much Bellator contracts are. You could convince me. I'm sure that some high-end people are doing well, but you could also convince me that, like, some of the Bellator contract pay is tied up in the idea that they have individual sponsors, and that, hey, we might pay you a little bit less, but the UFC is restrictive in your sponsorships, and you can make, per Ryan Bader at one point in time, $100,000 per fight based on your own sponsorship acquisition. So, I don't at least know enough about what Bellator contracts are like to have a great idea about that.
Like, if Eblin's making like 125 and 125 right now, the UFC is not going to pay him that. No chance.
Probably not. But also, it's at that point you get into the game theory of it. Is it worth it to risk losing potentially the best middleweight in the world to save $25,000 contract or whatever, like a fight for him or whatever? Like, then you have to game theory and figure out what the UFC would pay, and you're releasing him to the open market, when instead you can just say, this money doesn't really mean that much to me. I'll pay him the extra scratch and make sure that we have him on the roster and we can continue to build, because that should be, again, their focus, their priority should be on growth. It should be on putting out and creating the best product possible. And to do that, they need the best fighters possible. And this just ain't where you save a nickel, in my opinion.
Yeah, you got to go all in now, and you need it to work. You need it to work. It's going to be real interesting next 18 months for the PFL. That's for sure. Grades on the women's main card of One Championship last week. I thought it was awesome. Stampus can't miss TV. Stamp Fairtex gets an A++++++ for me. She proved me wrong. Not saying that I didn't think she could win, but I just didn't think she had the MMA experience, some of the big fight experience that Ham had. But man, Stamp's a star, man. She is a friggin' star, and one needs to just boost her and get her out everywhere and just treat her like a star. She's A+++++ for sure.
I did not watch a second of this, so I will not comment on this. I saw the Angela Lee news and sort of how it broke out afterwards, but didn't watch this at all.
I watched it, and it was the last 3 fights, which was the last 4 fights.
Grappling, Muay Thai.
Yeah, it was basically a boxing match between MMA fighter and Muay Thai fighter. That was a super fun match. There was a straight up, I think, Muay Thai fight. That was freaking awesome. I can't remember the ladies' names. Then there was a really good grappling match between Danielle Kelly and another American lady, it was freaking really good. And then the main event was just super duper, and Stamp Fairtex should be a top 5 biggest MMA female MMA stars in the world. She has everything going for her. And the win was incredible too, because she just didn't knock out Zoe Ham, who I thought was going to beat her. she out grappled her too, and almost armbarred her. I think in the first round, and one of the most vicious body shot KOs we're gonna see all year. So
that was nasty, dude.
it was
so nasty.
so nasty. It was just so. Oh, it was beautiful. It was like, and you couldn't really see on the original broadcast angle because the angle you couldn't see the body shots. But once they did the reverse of it, and then you saw like how she just dug in. She hit the same spot right under the rib 3 times in a row. Oh, she is so good, and I was so impressed with Sam Fairtex. Her walkout, post fight, in ring, her actual fighting skills, everything. Like man, one has their Ronda Rousey or whatever, whatever you want to call it. But she's the real deal. It was spectacular. So I'll try.
That was the only fight I watched. Was the main event. That was the only main event. The main event was the only fight I watched.
Oh, the grappling match was awesome, and the Muay Thai match was super violent, and awesome too.
Yeah, I like what one's doing, man. I like what they're doing. I like what they're doing until they talk about what they're doing, and then it annoys the shit out of me. It's like, oh, we're just as good as the UFC and all this. You're not the UFC. Like
Don't be.
What's breaking you out in 2023 to American fans more than ever is that you're the alternative to the UFC. Stop comparing yourself to the UFC. Your product is, there are mixed martial arts bouts, but the formula in which you build your
They are not an MMA promotion.
No, they're not. So stop comparing yourselves to the UFC. Stop saying you're the number 2 MMA promotion. You are your own thing. You need to be your own thing. We're the number one. Right? Like, we're different.
They're a martial arts promotion who happens to have mixed martial arts part of it, and that's you're right. You're absolutely right. Anytime they should completely. They've I don't know if it was accidental or what, but like they have become. I used to kind of, one was like PFL to me for a long time. I just didn't like watching it, but it has grown on me, and I do think their product has gotten much better. And while I still don't like Muay Thai in a cage, I still think that's gross. I've accepted it. Yeah. But
well, they also do Muay Thai in rings too.
Yeah. That's
so.
I wish they did rings more to even differentiate them more. But they
honestly should just be. And I hate rings. I think rings are not a good thing for MMA. They should just be a ring promotion. There's no real reason.
I love rings, but even for MMA, but I think the Amazon deal, man. At least for me, I'm only talking from my experience. It is really easy to watch one now, be it through Amazon Prime Video. It's really easy, even easier than YouTube, honestly. So they got a good thing, and I don't know the money parts of it. I don't know if that's working out for them, but just from my viewing experience, I hate saying it, but I'm admittedly I'm becoming a one fan until they start talking. then it becomes
If Chatri just didn't say anything, they would be perfect. Yeah. They'd be in a great place right now. I know that Bloody Elbow released some of the contract information, so there's been a whole bunch of weirdness going on with that. Very tough. A lot of language in that is rough. I know Alex Davis came out and defended the Adriano Moraes contract, and there's probably some truth to what Alex is saying, that he made more money than that contract they showed. I'm sure there's more to be made, but it's just like the disclosed pay when the UFC goes to an event where the commission's
so tax fraud. So we're tax frauding it. Is that what? I made more money than was reported. Good to know.
Well, I mean, know how the thing is. They're not going to disclose everything.
If you're looking for heroes in promoters, not just in MMA and boxing, anywhere, there are none.
Zero.
It's a career that almost exclusively caters to some of the worst people you've ever met. It's unfortunate, but historically, that's incredibly accurate. You got to respect what one is doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the best advice I can give to fans is just watch fights and like the fights, because the more you dive deep into this industry, the more worms you're going to find, and they ain't pretty to look at. So,
my fandom died a lot when I got more invested in learning. And I still love the sport and I love my job, but there are no heroes here, and that's true of other parts of the world as well. I just wanted to say this on one. I totally respect what they're doing. I think you guys are absolutely right. They shouldn't brand themselves as an MMA promotion. They're not. They're a combat sports promotion, and I think that it would be incorrect to say, but they could at least claim with some credibility that they're the number one combat sports promotion in the world. I think it's really easy, like Casey said, to watch. It's always like on the banner. I have a Fire TV, and like when I load it up, it's like, hey, here's this going on. Super easy, and I can't get there. And I think a lot of it is, for whatever reason, I enjoy grappling, and I enjoy Muay Thai, and I enjoy kickboxing, and I enjoy MMA. And it being all like sort of pell-mell into one rollout, that's funny for me with Fight Circus, which is an absurdist thing. It is less engaging to me to watch a one and be like, and now we have a grappling match, and now we're going to MMA, and now it's going to be a Muay Thai, and now here's going to be a random custom rules match. It's just that part is off-putting, and so I understand it. I'm not saying they should change a thing. Totally respect what they're doing as a business, but I'm not where you got to, Casey. It's still not an enjoyable product for me to watch in a lot of ways.
I was with you, honestly, that too, like switching rule sets, but I'm just going to assume the Asian market has accepted this because Ryzen does this. I know other Japanese promotions have kickboxing and MMA, but one kind of takes it a step further with everything. But yeah, I get it. I get how it's off-putting sometimes, but it is different, and yeah.
And
like
they
totally
found a way.
It hasn't connected with me in that way.
It's not for everybody, and they found a way to put stakes on things that no longer seem random on these cards, which I like too. Like Danielle Kelly, like she was everywhere promoting this grappling match. She did interviews with everybody, which is super freaking smart. Made it seem like that grappling match was a very big deal. So they're doing things right.
You're right. I thought it was just a grappling match, but the way they built it up with the big belt and everything, I was like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, am I watching like the ADCC finals right here? It felt big. Yeah. Oh, the belt's too big. It's comically big. It's comically
that's
big.
The thing is, it is cartoonishly large, and it's incredibly apparent when you're talking about like women's atomweight fighters or the men flyweights. It's like,
or even
actually,
on DJ.
It's the size of DJ's torso. Like, you could maybe get away with it like Anatoly Malakin or whatever, who's a large person, but it's just like tiny humans who could like hide behind that if they needed to as a shield. It is way too big.
It's not a belt, it's a shield. That's what they should just call it. You win the one championship shield.
Right now, if they get a shield instead, I'm in. I change everything.
You put it in your arm. Yeah.
You just carry it out like that.
Every promotion gives out belts. We give out shields. Yeah.
Dude, and look at like the old belts that like boxing championship belts used to be small. Like belts. Like
there were ribbons.
Like
ribbons
slightly bigger belts, than like an actual belt you could wear. And it is just like cartoonishly expanding. And now we're at one, which is like the apex of all of them. And it's bigger isn't better. Please change that.
One more question about one.
I'll do them. Okay. Is Angela Lee a women's MMA pioneer for Southeast Asia and Singapore? What is her legacy? What do you think, Casey? How would you define Angela Lee's legacy?
Definitely a.
I don't think you can call her a pioneer.
Not pioneer, because she came in too late.
She started in like 2015. Yeah, that's just past pioneer.
I'm trying to think of a comparison though, but I do feel like Angela Lee was their first crossover star in the sense that she was a star in Asia and becoming a star in the States. And I think I forget her opponent's name, but Angela Lee's, I think her 2 matches with the Chinese MMA fighter, I think, were just incredible matches. Yeah, incredible matches.
It was 3 of them, by the way.
Oh, 3 of them, sorry. yeah, it was there were just incredible matches. I think that was their Chandler Alvarez kind of, I guess I think that's the comparison. That was their Chandler Alvarez. That's just these just incredible matches that kind of just became. Those matches became bigger than the organization. Just like Chandler Alvarez at the time was became bigger than Bellator. I think that's what Angela Lee's kind of her legacy is. And yeah, we don't need to go into why she retired, but just unfortunate and sad. But I think in the end, she will leave the sport with a very highly regarded legacy. But Pioneer's a little too far. I won't go Pioneer just because it just came too late in the game. There were other Pioneers before her. Yeah.
Yeah, she just can't be a pioneer at this. Like when you started in 2016, you're not a pioneer by just about any definition. But yeah, I also, heart goes out to her. Totally understand. Will say this: I would not say her legacy is written. She's still like 27.
Yeah.
She could take a 5-year hiatus from the sport to deal with the things she is dealing with and still be a very young woman to return and come back in like a substantive way. So wish the best for her. I would not say she's not getting a damn at the moment,
Yeah. She was just the face of that organization in a lot of respects, for sure. Especially before they started signing, before the trade, and before they started signing a lot of the ex-UFC talent.
I want to say I
Was
pitched her once.
was she their first homegrown star? Oh, sorry.
Probably.
Yeah, I would say so.
I can't think of another one. I mean, yeah, probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ben Askren doesn't really count as homegrown, right?
No, it's can't be better. Yeah. Yeah.
It was
So
Bellator. Yeah. She was probably the first one I can think of because, when she was 20, we knew who she was. And like, all right, she's going to be something. And
every fight in her career is one. Every one. Every pro fight.
Yeah.
All of them.
She was, yeah. So they're AJ McKee.
Almost Kayla Harrison-esque in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
Maybe not with the Olympic pedigree, but with just homegrown star being a face of the organization, and then eventually you lose, but you're still over in a certain respect. There's still an intrigue and a mystique that surrounds you. I think Angela kind of always had that. So, yeah, hopefully she can get everything in her personal life squared away, and who knows, maybe she does come back for one more or more. I don't know.
Cool.
We'll take one more.
One more.
We'll take one more if we got one. Yeah, something.
One more.
Anything spicy.
I'm about to be really disappointed in our viewers.
Why? Are you still hyped about Francis versus Tyson? Jed with the bold prediction last week.
I don't know that I was ever hyped about it, but I'm standing by it. I'm committed to the bit. My great regret this year, if I had one do-over, it wouldn't be losing my entire bankroll on Valentina Shevchenko. It wouldn't be any number of other poor personal choices. It would be that I didn't sack up and pick Sean Strickland to beat Israel Adesanya for the bit, which I should have done. I said for a month that I was talking myself into it, and I backed away like a coward. I won't let this happen for this very stupid thing that's about to happen. I've drawn my line in the sand. It's very, very dumb. I understand that it's very dumb. It's probably not going to happen, but I'm committed. I am committed. Let's go, Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, I don't know if I was ever. I think I'll get more into it after. Look, we have to deal with this. We have to walk before we run. We have to deal with this KSI, Tommy Fury, Logan Paul, Dylan Dennis shenanigans first. And then once, well, we're going to have to. And then once that ends, then we can start looking ahead at another weird boxing stuff. Plus Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk are going to fight maybe in December, maybe in January, like 2 months after this Ngannou fight's going to happen, which I think is friggin' brilliant, by the way, because Then it
I
calls
like it.
attention to, oh, Tyson's overlooking him. Maybe Ngannou can win. And we're going to have all these theorists that come out and say, like, oh, see, maybe this will happen. I respect Jed for sticking to his guns here. He's going to be incredibly wrong, more than likely. But boy, if he's right, it's going to be incredible. Now, that would be the funniest thing that has happened all year, especially with this other fight book.
I want to be clear. If I'm right, I'm doing the rest of the BTLs this year shirtless and hammered. Like I'm going to be on here and I could put a bandana on and just live my life to the max.
I'm so excited.
Quick
Jen's just doing the show from a motorcycle.
I might buy a motorcycle.
On a motorcycle.
Like you won't ride. You're just gonna put it in his studio and just sit on it and rev it up in his.
All right.
The leather vest and just going. Yeah. It's gonna be
What's that,
best.
Mike? I can't hear you.
Couldn't hear
Over
you.
the sound
Over
of
the sound of my awesome.
What? Julia Payne is going to beat Nunes?
It'll be the best bit that's ever happened. I want to be clear. I'm going to celebrate if Ngannou just like drops him. I don't care if he loses because, whatever. But if he even drops him, like he gets the Deontay Wilder dropping him, it's going to be sick. It's going to be the best.
Oh, my
Can't
God.
Wait.
If he lamps Tyson Fury, oh, my God.
It'll be the funniest thing I've ever come.
I think if he lands one punch that makes Fury even take a step backwards or his knees just kind of wobble, I think that's a win. Almost like when Conor hit that one uppercut kind of on Mayweather. Yeah. And they're like,
everyone was like, oh my God!
Oh my God!
It was like Michael Johnson hitting Khabib in the first round.
Oh,
his legs aren't under him. His legs aren't under him. And then Khabib 10-8'd him in the first round.
That is, we talked about this on Damn Mike. That's just one of the best unsung moments of like, oh my God, he's hurt. And within 2 minutes, the commentary team is like, they could stop this fight. Khabib might be dead. Actually, guys, his corner. No. Big John's taking a deep look into this fight.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, great,
incredible! All right, I don't know if we can get any better than that.
Yeah,
we can't. As we leave, I'd like to say, guys, I didn't watch one because it was Friday and I was off, but the event of the month happened on Saturday. Fight Circus 8, Running Man. It was everything you think it was going to be. Shout out to Ben Folks, who actually maybe it was Chad Dundas who said this on their podcast this week. Fight Circus is the cocaine bear of MMA, and I've never heard a more apt description of anything, frankly. It was delightful. Charles Felony Bennett, but I'll always call him Crazy Horse Bennett in the main event against Bank and No Money, a 2-on-1 fight. The hockey fight, the new addition to Fight Circus. They're always coming up with new things, and the hockey fight was brilliant. For those who didn't watch, one, go watch, and two, they made two dudes fight on a slip and slide, basically. It was hilarious and incredible.
Two big dudes, two big gentlemen.
Yeah, two very large men.
Yeah.
Blind Muay Thai was just incredible. We got a Ben the Bane Davis cameo. It's everything you want from Fight Circus. And you know what the best part of it was, Mike? The very best part of the whole thing? You could watch the motherfucker. They put it on YouTube. PFL can't do it. Fight Circus can make their product viewable for everybody. Come on, PFL. Get your shit together.
John Nutt is a legend. Big BTL fan, from what I understand. So, shout out John Nutt. Keep doing what you're doing, buddy. Keep doing what you're doing.
Keep living it up. Also, the Lethway fight was legitimately sick. They always have a Lethway because they're like plugged into the actual like World Lethway stuff over there. So they always have like one or two actual real life Lethway fights. And this one was insane. So it was fun as hell, man.
Well, go watch Fight Circus.
Were their headbutts actually landed? Were headbutts landed?
So there was one headbutt that was like really nasty. One dude was doing Lethway who wasn't a Lethway fighter. He was just like a Muay Thai guy. And so he was not like going for the torpedo dive head. But yeah, I mean, it was easily the sickest real fight that happened. The rest of it's all just hilarious and great.
And they had a regular old boring ass MMA fight too.
Yeah.
I like that.
That fight was over in like 20 seconds. The fight was over very quickly. And then we went right from that into blind Muay Thai, which is exactly what it sounds like. And it's incredible.
Bless you, Fight Circus, for giving us the alternative. Hit the music. Yes, there you go.
Big
weekend, everybody.
They're my baby. Fight Circus is my baby. I got to shout them out whenever I can.
And they deserve it, every bit of it. Big weekend, everybody. UFC Vegas 80. We got Bellator 300. Casey's in San Diego right now.
Well,
it's going to be a fun weekend. So thank you very much for watching and or listening. For Jed, for Casey, I am Mike Hack, the iconic voice of Esther Lynn. Take you home. Back next week. Good night, everybody.
Love y'all.
This has been a MMA fighting production. I'm Esther Lynn. Thanks a lot.